Western civilization. How much do you know? My name is Russell Miles and this is the 40th episode of our Western Civilization series. In the previous episode we looked at the evolution of nuclear doctrine. In this episode we'll explore further how nuclear weapons are an integral component of Western defence and security. The United Kingdom has an estimated 180 to 220 nuclear weapons, of which 120 are United States designed W-93 warheads for submarine-based ballistic missiles, with 40 such warheads deployed at any time. Each warhead has an explosive power of 100 kilotons. The UK has 4 Vanguard-class ballistic missile submarines which were introduced in the late 80s, replacing older Polaris submarines. A signal submarine is on deterrence patrol at any time, with another preparing for deployment. The submarines are believed to patrol in deep waters of the North Atlantic, which the missiles' range of 600 nautical miles can strike anywhere in Western and Central Europe, including the Russian heartland. The UK's Vanguard-class submarines carry between 8 to 10 missiles, although they have a capacity of 16. 4 to 8 missiles have strategic nuclear warheads and the others non-strategic nuclear warheads within the 10 kiloton range. The UK's government had postulated adding a non-nuclear capacity to its ballistic missile submarines, which as described operate with a fraction of their complement of missiles. In the mid-2000s, the US Defense Department sought to deploy conventionally armed Trident missiles as part of a prompt global strike capability. This was rejected by the US Congress, mostly because a non-nuclear missile would be indistinguishable from a nuclear missile, so negate the objective of deterrence. The US Navy has converted a few ballistic missile submarines to exclusively operate Tomahawk intermediate-range land attack cruise missiles. These missiles would be able to carry precision-guided non-nuclear warheads. However, the Tomahawk missile was originally designed to carry nuclear weapons and whose range of 2,500 nautical miles is comparable to ballistic missiles. Thus, the issue of an enemy deciding that such was a nuclear attack and launching nuclear retaliation remains an issue. In early 2021, in an integrated view of defence and foreign policy, the UK government announced an increase of nuclear warhead cap in the recognition of an evolving security environment. The proposal was to increase the number of nuclear warheads for the Royal Navy's Trident submarines from 180 to 260. The UK might increase the number of warheads of each missile, perhaps from 3 to 5. This is assumed to be a reaction to Russian military aggression and China's growing military power. However, as previously mentioned, the UK's ballistic missile submarines have not in recent years gone to sea with a full complement of ballistic missiles. This is due to an agreement with the USA, who provided the missile and proprietary knowledge of the nuclear warheads. One presumption of the UK's strategic planning is that in the 1980s the introduction of multiple re-entry nuclear warheads was to ensure they could destroy Moscow even if the Soviet Union deployed a ballistic missile defence system, i.e. to have sufficient warheads to overwhelm such a defence. Thus, if the Russians were to further develop missile defence, the UK may want more warheads to ensure deterrence. With regard to China, the geography of the Euro-Asian landmass complicates deploying one submarine in a position where even with long-range missiles it could target strategic targets in both Russia and China at the same time. The submarine might sail into the Arctic Sea or the Indian Ocean, move closer to one or the other according to the situation, but as repeatedly mentioned, the uncertainty of where a submarine might be creates the deterrent effect. The more likely explanation for the addition of more nuclear warheads is domestic political concerns. The UK has been progressively reducing military expenditure, which has long been high by comparison with most Western countries. The assertion that the nuclear deterrence, the key component of the UK's military capacity, is responsible to strategic development may deflect any domestic opposition to reduction in non-nuclear capabilities, which tend to be obvious in the public perception. The actual situation is that the UK's current nuclear devices have not been updated since the end of the Cold War. To ensure they remain safe, effective and reliable, new warheads must be developed. Thus, as older warheads are withdrawn to be rebuilt, the total pool of warheads may be slightly expanded to ensure enough for standard operation. This technical need probably presented an opportunity to present the development as responding to global concerns. Nuclear weapons certainly have a political dimension, but not always that which is imagined. China has announced a modest expansion of its comparatively modest nuclear arsenal compared with Western nuclear powers and Russia. The Chinese nuclear arsenal is believed to be about 300 warheads, both strategic and tactical, with plans for an expansion of a couple of hundred more. This change would make minor difference to the prevailing deterrence. As with the UK, this is probably more for domestic political reasons that a great power ought to have a comparable nuclear arsenal. Belgium is one of NATO's countries which has an operational control of nuclear devices which are primarily in the custody of the United States of America. The others are Germany, Netherlands, Italy and Turkey. As previously mentioned, Canada returned its nuclear devices to the United States, as has Greece. Even during the Cold War, the Belgian Air Force's F-16A fighters would struggle to reach the then East German border. At the present, the aircraft's combat radius limits them to reaching other NATO countries. Since the end of the Cold War, Belgium has massively reduced its military, including abolishing 8 of its 10 fighter squadrons. The utility of a nuclear strike capability has been reviewed at various times, most recently in a parliamentary debate in 2020. Theo Franklin, Member of Parliament, argued that the presence of nuclear weapons in Belgium was not only critical for the NATO military alliance, headquartered in Brussels, but also to Belgium's international reputation. Belgium's decision may soon be forced upon it, as it is replacing its Cold War era aircraft with more advanced F-35 strike aircraft. These new aircraft are designed by the United States and have been built as part of an international consortium involving most Western countries. However, the US has not to date developed a version capable of operating nuclear devices. The US uses larger aircraft or cruise missiles for tactical nuclear devices, so has no immediate need for such aircraft. The US has long withdrawn its own tactical nuclear weapons from Western Europe and surface naval vessels. The USA has long wanted NATO countries to return their nuclear devices for destruction. The Soviets' nuclear forces in Eastern Europe have long been dismantled. However, the US has left this decision to its NATO allies out of concern for maintaining NATO unity. It is possible that the US is purposely delaying making the F-35 nuclear capable so as to encourage nuclear disarmament. The original intention of the US providing nuclear devices to its allies was to prevent them developing such weapons of their own. However, in very recent times, the US has indicated it may accelerate making the F-35 fighter nuclear capable. Western European countries have been increasing military spending after many decades of cuts. The political will appears to be due to Russian and Chinese aggressive demeanours. An outcome of the current political environment may be that the maintenance of the NATO's nuclear capability for more decades yet. Only if actors on the world stage believe they'll never be attacked would they forego nuclear weapons. While undertaking a university course in youth work in the early 1980s, our lecturers felt that we ought to have some general knowledge of world affairs. Our lecturer made a passing reference that Australia had territorial claim to 3/4 of the Antarctic, but that no other country acknowledged this claim. There was an audible groan from the otherwise liberal-minded students, who felt a jingoistic offence. I long remembered the ease that such emotions could be aroused. Sinead OConnor is a gifted singer-songwriter from Ireland. Her distinctive singing and stage performance achieved global fame in the 1980s and 90s, and she continues to create music and has a solid fan base. Sinead has undertaken considerable charitable work, long pressed the issue of institutional and church responses to sexual abuse, raised the treatment of women in the music industry long before the Me Too movement, and along with musical composition, exhibiting her shaved head, angry expression and often shapeless clothing as an artistic assertion against sexual abuse of women and children. Sinead O'Connor's music embraces world styles including traditional Irish folk songs in Gaelic. This includes the popular rendition of O Re She Du Va Walla. The English translation of the lyrics include, "Our fine land in the possession of thieves, and you sold it to the foreigners," and "The Irish themselves, not the French nor the Spanish, and they will rout the foreigners." This is a war song. There is deep emotion. To understand nuclear weapons that are capable of destroying civilizations and how to eliminate this scourge, we must understand our emotional dimensions. This is the last podcast in the current series about the Western way of war. If you like this channel, please subscribe and tick like. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I can be contacted at email russmills@iprimus.com.au. Thanks for listening.